Perfect. I think everyone hear me now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everyone. Great. Sorry for the cutoff. I'm gonna continue. So yeah, I was asking the scheduling to meet in Washington Square Park and Max, if you have any available dates and time, you can come down to Washington Square Park and talk with us.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay, so yeah.
ideally like for the next week or next week. What do you think?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna be away next week. I'll be back the next week, but also the council member can probably, I think I can check his schedule, have availability just to come himself and meet with you. But if you want to be there as well, yeah, I can come the next week.
Okay, sounds good. So you mean next week is the week of the August 28th?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll be back in the office on the 28th.
Okay.
Max and Eric had connected yesterday about getting it on the councilman's schedule. So
Yeah. Yeah, so it's possible the councilman can come next week just by himself. I have to check the schedule. Yeah, I was talking with Eric yesterday about that.
Oh, sounds great. Thank you. So maybe should we say like 29th, do you think? The next day, because the day you just come back office, you might be a little way too busy.
Yeah, I have to check our calendar and see because we have a bunch of people out, so just to make sure we have enough people in the office. So I'll just get back to you later and yeah, because I think we'll figure it out. I just can't commit right now.
Right, okay. Totally understandable. We will talk, but sometime in the week of August 28th. Thank you very much. Committee board 2. How about you? What do you think?
I'm going to be your point of contact on this for the foreseeable future. I will actually walk through the park every day, but if there's a better time of day to do it, then when I'm walking to work or when I'm going for lunch, I'm glad to make an arrangement and meet up with anybody who wants to talk to me.
So we first,
your audio dipped out again.
Okay.
Oh, now it's back. It's back.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just so you know, for this time, I also signed in with my phone. So if this audio cut off, I also have phone. So just so you know, I'll try different things. Do you have any preferred?
Actually, now that I'm thinking this through, it's always a mistake to speak and think at the same time, but here I do it. It might be sensible for me to come whenever the council member is going to be there, because then we'd all be reacting to the same input. And also it would spare you having to say everything 15 different times and possibly hearing it different ways. So why don't I hear from Max, if Max is willing, to whatever coordination works for the council member. Hopefully it's not tomorrow, the one day I'm out of town. But other than that, I'd be glad to make myself available. And then of course, I'll be reporting back to the board. Like a lot of organizations in August, catching people in the summer is a little hit and miss. So I think that's probably the most sensible way to approach it if that works for you all.
Yeah, that works for me. So yeah, I'll start another email thread after this so we can find a time and schedule a whole meeting in the park.
Okay, sounds great. As long as it seems like Mark has more flexibility about the scheduling. So as long as it works, then we can arrange like that. Thank you. So we'll figure it out. We lost the people from Washington Square Association, I guess. So I'm gonna wait if they're gonna find a way to come back, but we will see. Thank you, guys.
I can also, if there's anything that needs to be followed up, I can communicate with Trevor after the meeting.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much. Okay, so for now I'm just moving on to next. also this is gonna be also like I need to ask each organization, but I just gonna start with Max from the city council. So after we had this meeting 2 weeks ago, was there any development in the inside of the city council? Either you had a chance to talk with other members in the city council district 1, or maybe Christopher Marte, or did you have any chance to develop the conversation inside of the council?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, and I know you're having trouble hearing me, so we were able to schedule a meeting with the 6th precinct. I was hoping it would be before this meeting, but it's not going to be until tomorrow. And then also the council member will be meeting with the deputy commissioner of the NYPD. So just kind of deal with the whole kind of bigger issue there. And then this is kind of the issue we're having. I know there's probably gonna be some questions on this because we're trying to find the longer term solutions as well. So with the vending side of things, the issue is that the council, because it's the parks commissioner comes up with the rules for vending. It's not a city law. Is it like, with street vending, people selling hot dogs on the street, that's the city council. They make the rules for how many permits there are, where they're allowed, where they're supposed to be vending, all those things. But in parks, it's the park, I believe, and I might, I know people here know more than me, so correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe that it's up to the parks commissioner. So just figuring out the best way for us, and so kind of the idea we came up with would be working with kind of different elected officials, starting downtown, just starting with like a letter to the commissioner, kind of making the demand for amending the park rules, or the expressive matter vending. So that's kind of the first step we had on that, and kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to also kind of follow up here is to figure out what we want to know what you all want the alternative to be. I know Robert in his emails mentioned the pre-2010 rules. If that's kind of everyone's in agreement, that's what the alternative that we propose is. Like, we just want to know what alternative, do we propose to the Parks Commissioner, that you all want. And then in terms of the kind of the long-term, like a legislative solution with the performing, that's still trickier. We're trying to, we're trying to, like, our main concern, we just don't want a situation where if we, introduce a bill, like your idea for the no permitting below 80 decibels, we just don't want a situation where, because police don't carry decibel readers. So we don't want a situation where they're just going to say everyone is above 80 decibels. And again, just continue ticketing and arresting people, kind of making up, what the decibels are, because they don't have decibel readers. So like, there's no way for them to actually know. So that's kind of like the main, there's a couple other issues, but that's kind of the big issue there. So, I think what we want to try and do is figure out the short term first, after we have this meeting with the police, we talk higher, try and just reduce the enforcement or the over enforcement, especially that's happening. And then, longer term, figure out, what the legislative idea is. But I think it's a very tricky legislative situation. And so we want to make sure, we want to just, figure out the right idea. And I believe Grace mentioned that she told you, so that if people aren't aware, that the city council is being redistricted. So there's kind of new district maps. So it's starting in January. It will be Councilwoman Carlina Rivera. She's going to be the one representing Washington Square Park. And so that just changes a lot of things. So, I also, we want to kind of bring her into that conversation as well, because the long-term solution probably won't be done by January, unfortunately, whatever kind of that is. So just another thing to think about. And we'll be talking with her office to work on that.
Hanami, did Biani in her office ever respond to the email that I sent the two of you?
Do you mean the email I sent to Will, or?
No, I had sent after our meeting, after we met in the park, I'd emailed you and a staff person in Carlina Rivera's office. I don't think there was any, just so that you'd have a person to connect with there. I didn't see her reply. Did she reply directly to you?
No, not yet.
Okay,
And
I'll follow up with her as well. But also, Max, I don't know. Biani is just has been the person we talk with, because I think she's a similar title to what you have, but I don't know if she'll be taking the same slate of projects or anything. So if you know a different person in that office, that's just who I've been connecting with, Biani Rodriguez.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know a few people in their office, so we'll figure out who the best person to work with that is.
This uh, are figured out. I'm just saying, it's just out. Then my phone can
Why not? Kami, you're breaking
measure.
up again.
Oh, let me just try my phone audio. Then let me see.
Like every time we tell you it's not working, it starts again working again.
Yeah,
Whoops.
I can't tell whether you're speaking directly versus to the side. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Okay, for now I just get to the laptop like this.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
better.
so okay, I will just lower like this. Um, so what I was gonna say is like even my phone can, measure the decibel levels. Like it doesn't have to be like I don't know, special machine to like I don't know, to measure the decibels. Like I'm just saying that like it's not that difficult to measure the general like decibel levels just to determine is it too loud for the neighbors or not. So that's just
Also,
one idea.
I could be wrong, but I think the PEP officers do carry decibel readers. I'm not 100% sure, but no.
No.
Yes, I mean, I
Okay.
could say on that, like, while phones do have them, what this comes up a lot when it comes to noise from restaurants, like at night or bars at night, where the police don't, because they don't carry decibel readers, they all they can really do is like tell, this is a big issue, they can't really enforce a lot of the noise code because they can't prove that, again, and I don't know exactly what the regulations are. This is what I have to continue doing research on, but yeah, they don't like, yeah, they just, yeah, it's the same thing where obviously, a bar is blasting music. Obviously it's going above, I think it's like 42, 47 decibels allowed. Even when it's obvious, if they don't have like the official decibel reader, all they can do is just tell them to turn the noise down. And that's why a lot of noise complaints don't really go anywhere because there isn't again, I don't want to go into that because there's a whole other way to get a decibel reading. But it's, yeah, like the police don't care. Like the average officer just doesn't carry one. And that's even if it's like obvious and even and maybe I don't know, and this is something I can look into if a phone decibel reader is legally kind of holds the same weight as one of the official ones that they have. But yeah, I just feel like that's an issue that comes up with other noise complaint issues.
Yeah, Mark,
Yeah,
I
if I could jump
defer to
in
your
on that.
expertise.
Well, I've been around this block a few times. It's DEP that carries the decibel meters that I'm
I
sorry,
was so close. One initial off.
Department of Environmental DEC or the Department of DEP. It's the city DEP,
Yes, DEP.
Environmental Protection, that is responsible for noise violations and issues the summonses. It is true and not always. Well, to Max's point, the NYPD can enforce noise regulations, but they do it as a disturbing of the peace, not as a violation of the noise code. And quite frankly, the NYPD is more effective than DEP would be because all DEP can do is issue a violation that goes to the either the ERB or the OATH. Anyway, that's not what you're talking about here. What you are talking about, it sounds like, is amending park rules, which is subject to the City Administrative Procedures Act, because you can't just, one commissioner by him or herself should not and cannot change park rules. And so there is a fairly detailed provision for that. It requires public hearings and so forth, and an opportunity for public comment. And when I spoke last time, of course, we had that recurring issue of how do we distinguish among different park users for different regulations. So that's something that you're all going to have to confront at some point or another, is how do you make a rule that works for Konami but shuts Mark up as people would want Mark shut up.
Yeah. So like there are many ways to like approach the solution, but we're gonna talk about that later. And since Mark started to share your voice, I also want to hear if there was any development of the conversation in the community board too. Did you have a chance to talk with other members in community board too? If you had a chance, I want to know what was the discussion like.
So I certainly briefed our leadership on the takeaway from the last meeting. There was no action item on our agenda for that, and quite frankly, the community board doesn't meet in August as a full board. Probably we would not be called upon to take an action or take a position until such time as, for example, there were proposed regulations to comment upon. That's kind of how we work. It's that we're a different organization than the ones you're speaking with. The NYPD does not, I mean, they're cordial to us and we're cooperative with them, but they don't answer to us. Probably a pretty good thing, actually. So right now, just as I said last time, I'm mostly here to listen and to take back and to learn. That's the mode that we're in. And when there's a proposal to which to react, then the appropriate folks at the board will be briefed and ready to take an action or take a reaction on that. But as of right now, that's not where we are.
Okay, thank you. The same question for Grace. Maybe many people out of the office, as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but still I will ask, how was the development of the conversation in the constituency?
It was, everyone is very glad that we're having these conversations. As you say, most of our board members are out of the city, but I was able to connect with a few of them via email and fill them in. I did have a full sit down meeting with Will following both this call 2 weeks ago, Konami after our meeting as well, and after I had had a chance to meet with Eric and Danny last week. I literally ditched them from the park and went straight to sit down with Will. So he's been fully briefed on what's going on here. You know, I put a number of questions to him in his capacity as Parks Department employee, namely that, you know, I'm hearing a lot of information from you guys that you guys being the artists and the performers, that you're hearing from PEP, that you're hearing from NYPD, that you're reading on the Parks website. And it seems like every person that I talk to has a slightly different understanding of everything. And so I tried to really bring that message home. And so it seems to have gotten through. Obviously, Will isn't here. I'm not a Parks Department employee, so I can't speak to what they're doing, but I have been comforted, confirmed, whatever word you want to put to it, told that there will be guidance on that they've heard, you know, from everyone that there is confusion there. So hopefully, you know, Will have an update for me on that when he's back. I was curious if Konami or Max, if either of you had reached out to either the Parks Department or the NYPD or both of them to come to these meetings or to meet in the city, because I know you've had the sort of impromptu meetings like with the sergeant that Eric had and everything, but you know, I'm just wondering if the ask has been put for something more formalized, because if it has and there hasn't been any response, I can follow up, and if it hasn't, I'd be happy to facilitate that ask.
Thank you for asking that. I was actually about to ask about it to Max, if Max could communicate with 6 precinct people or NYPD in general, because now different officers from different precincts apparently, you know, patrols the parks. So yeah, I mean, I haven't contacted them directly yet, but maybe Max or Grace, I don't know, either of you, do you think you can you know, ask them to join our meeting like this?
Yes.
Yeah, and like I said,
Okay.
we're going to be meeting with them tomorrow, so we can also,
Right.
depending on
Right.
how it goes, yeah, either bring it up there or follow up with them.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you very much. Then as long as I have any spokesperson from NYPD, you know, all what I need is just their email so that I can start sharing all those meeting links and what we've discussed so far. So
And I'll do
great.
the same with the Parks Department, because it would be, I mean, it would be great to have a representative from the Parks Department to come here and talk to everyone about, you know, what their intentions are.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Oof. It's been great, but like, you know, timing's kind of picking, so I'm just gonna go to the next. So this is a question I got for conservancy. Let me pull up. Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, and anything that any questions you have for me that we don't get to here, feel free to follow up with me via email and I can communicate with folks that way too.
Okay, thank you. I have it now here. So I know we already personally talked one-on-one, but like since it's brought up, I'm gonna ask you again anyway. So the question is, does the Conservancy receive any funds from NYU? If it does, has the Conservancy received any requests about the park enforcement from NYU? If you do, what kind of things have been discussed with NYU and Conservancy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Conservancy does get funding from NYU. They've been a direct donor. I'm not our fundraiser. I don't have the exact dollar amount. I think it was $15,000 historically. They also give money to the Parks Department that funds the PEP officers. And so we are now to my understanding, again, not our fundraiser. We are stewarding that gift, so it's kind of a directed for that. But and I don't believe it's the entire patrol. It might be, but the NYU does fund Parks Enforcement Patrol. Arlene Peralta from NYU, I forget her title, but she does sit on our board. So she has received all of the, various updates that I've been sending to everyone.
Okay. Yeah, because that was actually a question from one of us from this meeting. Because sometimes we notice this wave of like strong enforcement and less enforcement, and then when one tendency we kind of notice is like beginning of the semester, there's a lot of like orientations and many parents visit the park as well. And we were wondering if, NYU possibly, asks like strong enforcement around the beginning of the semester or like whenever many parents visit the park, and so that, like they want to make the park presentable to the parents. So
not to my knowledge. That gift, so for the contribution for the Parks Enforcement Patrol has historically been going through the Parks Department, not through us. This is a more recent change in our fundraising. So I'm not as well versed on it. So if there was ever something like that, it would have gone through the Parks Department, not us. But again, like no one in Washington Square Park other than the Parks Enforcement Patrol officers are within that chain of command. You and I went over that. They've got like their own sergeant and all of their own, like Will doesn't command the Parks Enforcement Patrol. So it's been, it's I doubt, I don't know, but I doubt that a request like that would have been made. I think it's much more likely that the press is to do with it, because there are a lot of stories that'll come of like students come back and get mugged, and like that's not a great look. I'm guessing that has more to do with it.
Okay, thank you. So maybe after Will came back to, came back from the vacation, like he might know something. I don't know, because
Yeah,
he also
he currently
has the role.
manages our books. We had so our development director we no longer have a development director. We're currently fundraising for a deputy director. If anyone knows someone with good, or we're currently hiring for a deputy director. So if anyone knows someone with good fundraising experience and you want to apply, information's up on our website. But yeah, our fundraiser, our financial person is not currently around. So I stopped taking math in high school. I'm not great at answering questions that have to do with numbers. My apologies.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's see. Also, I need to ask the same question, but to the Washington Square Association. I think we lost Maria, but Joan is still here.
I think we still
Joan,
have Joan, and I think Joan's actually the treasurer, so she's probably the perfect person to ask that question.
Oh, great. Thank you. So, but before that, I also want to ask, uh, Joan, if do you hear me? Sorry, sometimes my voice cut off, I understand, but maybe you don't hear me. Oh, you hear me. Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I thank you very much. So I wonder if organization had any chance to about issue this with other members like that. Are there any conversation this issue?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing very well. And also,
Do you
uh, uh, unfortunately, I have
hear
COVID,
you?
I'm really prepared to speak. Um,
Do you still hear me, or my voice is cutting off?
you're breaking up, so I'm not really
I
hearing.
think her question was whether the association directly funds any of the enforcement in the park.
Yeah, I actually have not started working as treasurer yet. I won't until next month, so I can't say I really have that information. Maria may have it, but I'm afraid I don't.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try.
Sorry, I'm not an expert on the association, but just to my understanding, they don't. Just based off of the information for what they do fundraise for on their website. Things like the Washington Square Music Festival, the holiday tree lighting, the chess simuli.
That's
I think
correct.
Their wheelhouse. It's community.
Yeah. I don't think there's any direct funding, but subject to my not having complete knowledge at the moment.
Yeah.
I use the phone audio. Do you hear me now? Okay, cool. Sorry. So yeah, that was one question. But another question for the association was, did you have any chance to develop the conversation on this issue in general, like talking with other members in this association or anything like that?
I think that's something that we will need to discuss.
I know
So
that
it
Eric
hasn't
and
happened
Trevor
yet.
had connected. Eric and Trevor were emailing and,
Right.
and speaking. I know that had happened.
Right.
Okay, so it hasn't happened yet, but I think you will have a conversation sometime soon.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let's see.
And I try this mic again, and maybe it's not working.
Working.
It's working, but you probably will need to pick one audio input versus the other, because otherwise there'll be a bit of an echo.
Right. I turned off the other one, so
Yep.
hope this is working. Thank you.
That does seem better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so this is another question for the city council. So I understand that you are you already planned some meeting with 6% and NYPD and everything, which I really appreciate. And also I was wondering about if we are gonna have any chance to talk to Christopher Murthy himself. I'm not sure, how busy he is or how's his schedule looking like, but do you have any idea about that possibility?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, yeah, like any meeting that I would come to the park, he can come. I would make sure he's there too. And then also, yeah, like I'm gonna be gone next week, but he'll still be here. So if you wanted to meet with just him and not me, I can also see if he's available to meet just himself. But I would also want to be there and meet you all too. But yeah, he's definitely happy to meet with you all.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I misunderstood, but so yeah, he can come to the park, which is great. And Also about the Zoom meeting, this is kind of recurring meeting. So like, I'm not sure, for example, right, if he can make it like this meeting pretty much every time or like once in a while, or
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
don't
think
know.
yeah, I can, yeah, depending on, yeah, just when it is. And he won't necessarily be able to stay for the whole hour and a half every time, just because
Right.
his schedule's, it's different every day. But yeah, depending on, and we can try and schedule the next meeting around his schedule. Yeah, so so he can come in for at least a little bit.
Sounds great. For the communication, maybe I should go through you or should I directly email him?
No, yeah, you can do it through me. I can handle all the schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Mm. Okay, so this is another question for association. Do you hear me now, Joan?
Yes, I do hear you.
Perfect, thank you. So I heard that Washington Square Association works more with the community around the Washington Square Park, more like neighbors. So compared to, for example, Washington Square Conservancy, they work more inside of the park, if my understanding is correct. And association works with the neighbors and people around the park. So I was wondering, is there any way for us or me to communicate more with the neighbors and residents around the park? Because for us, it is really important to communicate with them, but I found myself, it's kind of hard to closely communicate with them. Like, yes, I see some of them in the park, but like we're not sure like which people are like directly affected by the noise in the park or all the crimes happening in the park, and like we really don't know like who's not from the community and then who's from the community. So I'm not sure how you as an association communicate with the residents around the park, but do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I want to correct one thing. It's not true that our role is limited to the neighbors or the area around the park. We're also very active, equally active. In fact, our main focus is the park itself. I don't know of any, I can't tell you at the moment. I mean, I could look into this, of any formal communications we have with neighbors. But certainly, I mean, there's some, I mean, for instance, Erica Sumner lives right on the park, and and she would be more knowledgeable about this than I am. So I could certainly look into it. But again, I want to emphasize that, this is not our main focus is not on the neighborhood.
I think what Konami meant is just that the Conservancy doesn't go outside of the park's borders, whereas you guys do have a purview that goes beyond the borders of the park.
Well, I guess, I certainly that's true, but I just want to make sure that that it's not that make sure it's understood that our focus is not on the areas around the park as opposed to the park itself.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So for that possible more close communication with the neighbors, should I contact just Trevor or should I go through you, or who's the best person?
Contacting Trevor would probably be the best bet, or Erica.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, so this is another question about the statement from Washington Square Conservancy. I know Eric and I think Danny as well. Because I'm away from the city, unfortunately. You guys are
we talked about
closely
it last
working.
week. And I sent something over to Eric last week, following our conversation, but I think in light of everything that happened over the weekend, he's decided to change his tactics a little bit. So I don't know what his plans are there. But we did provide a statement following that meeting to him, and I can send that to you as well, Konami, if you'd like it.
Yeah, I think I saw a draft of it sent by Eric. So like I'm
Yeah,
not sure
whatever
which.
Eric's got is
Mhm.
it's That's it.
I'm not sure which one was the final draft, but I've been trying to follow it. And the one thing I definitely heard was like sooner is better because the situation is getting worse and it's kind of getting urgent. So maybe Danny, could you follow up a little bit because I'm out of the city and I'm not sure if I have correct understanding about it.
I think Eric has been leading the statement. And the statement is his work with Grace. So maybe you can speak with Eric afterwards.
Yeah, Eric and I had spoken on the phone yesterday, and I think he is just looking to do something other than releasing a statement at this point. I think he feels like that's not at, and I don't want to speak for Eric, so definitely follow up with him. But to my understanding from what he was saying yesterday, is right now he doesn't feel that a joint public statement is going to do a whole lot for anything. So he'd prefer to just focus his energies elsewhere for now. But I might be misunderstanding that. So definitely follow up with Eric.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's also another question for the Grace. So do you know if Will had a chance to talk to the park department because he had a job position? I know he's on the vacation right now, but like I'm just not sure if he had any chance to talk with the park department before his vacation, or probably he didn't have a chance yet, or do you know anything about it?
I don't know. I know that the Parks Department saw the statement that I provided to Eric because I sent it to them as a heads up. But I don't know if they've had any conversation further than that. Yeah. I would imagine probably. I haven't been filled in on it.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna follow up with him after he's back from the vacation.
Yeah, I know we spoke about it, but he's gonna come just talk to you in the park.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Andrew, thank you. You're both breaking up. Am I breaking up still?
Nope, you're good.
No. Okay, thank you. Great. If you don't mind me asking, Max, you haven't had the specific date of the meeting with the 6th precinct in NYPD, or you already have the date?
It's tomorrow.
So could you repeat?
Oh, yeah, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not gonna, disturb and join, like jumping in, but like, what time is in tomorrow?
I think, let me check. I think we're gonna be there around 1 p.m.
Okay, so tomorrow around 1 p.m. If you had a chance after the meeting, if you could send me a follow-up email or even a phone call, I think that would be great. I think email would be
Yeah. Definitely plan after the meeting to give an update after that.
great. Thank you very much. Great. Great. And also, I read your message on the chat, Robert, but like, are you sure you're good with your questions? I have a time to go over your questions.
No.
No. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let me see. Sorry if I already heard. Do you know, John, when Trevor is gonna be back from the vacation? Probably I just missed.
I'm not sure. I think next week, but I would have to check.
Okay, sometime next week. So that means like he can also possibly join the on-site meeting in the next week, the week of August 28th, because that's not next week, it's next week. So he's
Right,
gonna be back by then.
I believe so, yes, but again, I would have to check.
Yeah, he emailed me
Okay.
saying he's back next week, early next week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So in that case, that'll be efficient if we have all the people, Max and Christopher Marte and Community Board 2 and Trevor. I mean, if it's not meeting on the exact same day, that's fine. But you know, if we can arrange it that way, that's even better. So I'm just putting out there. So it's possibly certain group of people. Mhm. Mhm. Oh, also, I have a question for the community board too. Do you have any sorry, my word. Do you have any communication with either the park department or police or any sort of like enforcement organizations, or community board is not communicating with them so often? Just to understand the position, I just will ask.
Not sure what you're asking.
Do you have any conversations or like communication with police or park department about the enforcement, or it's not the it's not the role of the community board too?
Generally speaking, the role of a community board is to, at least in this aspect of it, there are two basic functions. One is the policy making actions of a community board that comment on and are advisory to other city agencies, whether it be the city council or the parks department or NYP or any, on policy matters. But that generally is involved in a rather formal policy proposal that someone is trying to pass. It is not on a day-to-day aspect of how they interpret or pursue policies that are already in place. So when I said before that we are not involved in enforcement actions either by the NYPD or the PEP officers, or there are other city agencies that have enforcement arms. We may be from time to time involved in saying that they should have more or less funding, but we don't tell them what to do. We do collaborate with them a lot with respect to issues. Well, I guess the most obvious one is the northwest corner of the park, and what happens there. And then because the community board district is bigger than just the park, of course, when there is enforcement action with respect to the northwest corner of Washington Square Park, we hear from residents on 6th Avenue, where the folks who have been displaced from the park tend to show up. So we do from time to time call attention to areas of concern, whether that be as something as serious as the open air drug markets that are an unfortunate part of our civic life in that corridor, everything to the rats underneath all those blessed sidewalk sheds that are outside restaurants that don't seem to be going anywhere, although the council members are working hard on making that happen too. So I hope that's an answer to your question. It's not a black and white kind of, yes, we're involved with this, and no, we're not involved with that. We try to affect the quality of life for all residents of the community. And in this particular district, that includes a lot of people who don't actually live here, because a lot of the commercial activity, a lot of what your artists are appealing to in terms of crowds in Washington Square Park are not necessarily people who live in the area or even the district. I think that you actually said it better than I could when you convened the first meeting about what it is that makes Washington Square Park quite special. And part of that is in turn what attracts people to the park and the village. So there are overlaps to be sure, but the most important thing to remember about a community board is that it's advisory. With almost no exceptions, we recommend, we advise, we comment, but we don't decide.
Okay, thank you so much. And follow-up question would be, for example, when I asked about how conservancy, works to keep the park safe, and because that's their purpose of their activities. And Grace told me that their focus is recently, at least, mainly the actual crimes like murders happening in Northwest Corner, and also the drug dealers and the skateboarders and e-bikes, because neighbors
Safety
don't feel,
concerns.
yeah, because they don't feel safe about it. So as far as I understand, those three are the main issues which conservancy is focusing on. And community board 2 meetings, is there any like topics about Washington Square Park arises? Because I understand the area is wider than Washington Square Park, as you said. So how often you guys talk about that topic in Washington Square Park, and what is their most concern from your point of view?
First thing to know is that I'm not a member of the board, I'm its staff. Second is that I've only been in this job since January, so my field of view is a little bit limited. With those two qualifications, I'll say that we are concerned, topics that are of concern to us that are within our area of focus are more often issues like someone wants to change part of the infrastructure of a park, or a park's so let's take a crazy example. Somebody thinks that blessed, the Washington Square Arch is just a big thing in the way and it ought to go away. Obviously the community board would jump in and say, wait just a second. I'm hoping it's an actual landmark, by the way, but anyway, I don't want to inspire anybody with my comment. So that's the kind of thing that we would be, a proposal like that. And it usually initiates with a proposal, and the proposal can come from a community group. The proposal can come directly from a city agency. And then there'd be an application or an initiative, and the board would convene some kind of proceeding, whether it would be a hearing, so the core function of a community board includes land use matters, zoning, and how the land is used. So if somebody wanted to rezone those beautiful townhouses to the north of Washington Square Park so that you could build a Trump-like building up there, that would thankfully come before our board, and I'm going to predict how that would go, go out, and that would be the subject of a public hearing, and everybody would be given an opportunity to speak, and so forth. There are standing committees of our board, one of which is involved with parks and the waterfront, and so they set their own agenda as well as reacting to proposals from the Parks Department, and sometimes from the Conservancy or other park conservancies and friends of groups. I'm thinking now of Hudson River Park Trust and that sort of thing as well. There is another way in which we get involved is that our district relative to other districts, for example, the district I actually live in, which is the Upper West Side, this district is not well served with open space. And so we are very involved in trying to maximize the potential for open space uses, whether they be passive or active recreation, and making sure that those are available equitably to everybody, and that they are in a condition that is both safe and able to be used. And there's a lot that goes into that, and it's off topic for us, so I won't say more than that. But I'm trying to give you a sort of a field of vision of what it is that a community board tries to do. relative to this space, which is having to do with parks. The closest we get to the NYPD, truthfully, is that once a year we're called upon by the charter to comment on the priorities for the coming fiscal year budget. So right now we're starting the process of commenting on the fiscal year 2025 budget. And so, for example, in past years, we've called on the city council to help restore funding for various park department, both capital and expense matters. So capital would be building things in the park, and the expense is that there are wonderful programs that employ all kinds of people, especially seasonally in the summer, especially whether they be horticulturists or just laborers that keep the parks clean. We comment on things like that as well. I hope that gives you
For those who are unaware, the Parks Department gets less than 1% of the city's budget annually, which is why organizations like the Washington Square Park Conservancy exist, because we help fill in some of those gaps. But
yeah,
not a lot of money for 14% of the city's space.
And there's an initiative to increase that too.
1% for parks, if you're not familiar with.
I seem to remember a campaign promise about that, but that's just me.
501c3, we make no comments on politics on our side.
Great. Thank you very much. Maybe if you know this, but like I was kind of cutting off and so switching laptop and phone a little bit, but like I think I heard most part of what you guys just said. So thank you so much. And it's 3:30 in New York, I believe. And here it's 8:30, so it's getting darker. But I think we are gonna close the meeting for today, and any follow-ups we can still communicate through emails. And I know, some people already have scheduled meetings, so I think we're gonna keep this conversation. And I think I wasn't sure if the 2 weeks was a good time to have this meeting again, but I do think that was kind of good timing to have after the last one. So I'm gonna still schedule the next meeting 2 weeks after from today. So it's another Wednesday, 2 weeks later. I'm gonna send another email, but if you are not available or anything, let me know. We can always follow up with each other through emails and other ways to communicate.
Nami,
So
just to
before we
clarify, it's all right if I put in an ask for the Parks Department to attend that meeting?
Yeah, please. If they're available, that'll be great. And same thing for Max. I know you're gonna have the meeting tomorrow, and if you are available, 2 weeks after from now, exactly 2 weeks after from now, another Wednesday. If they are available to join our meeting, that'd be great. That's how we make a progress, and if that happens, I'm gonna be happy to have them. So
okay, so yeah, I'll ask them. I'll see if also the council member can join. Like I said, I'm going to be gone, a week, so I don't know how many updates I'll have, 2 weeks. But yeah, I'm still happy to join the meeting and try and get everyone else in.
great, thank you very much. Yeah. So if that's all, I'm gonna close for now. And I am so sorry about my connection cutting off. And I tried my best from London. And
Technology is wonderful until it doesn't work right. Don't worry.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of your time and patience for this meeting, and hope I will see you in 2 weeks. So hope you will have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kanama.
Thank you so much.